ourselves, if you'll just put your hand over your eyes. I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
Over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
And then if you just put your arms over your heart and extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is with God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. You know, if you want even more success, I know we're all successful, you want even more success, bring the Almighty into your life. And when the Almighty, I say divine wisdom, bring divine wisdom, divine intelligence into your life, because with God, all things are possible. In the Bible, actually, there's more to that phrase. It's with man, not everything is possible, but with God, everything is possible in our life. With God, it's possible for you and I to have all the self-confidence we need to walk in any room and know that we are worthy, that it's good that we're there, that people are happy that we're there. With God, it's possible to have extra money in our life so that when we want to go do something, we don't have to worry about it. With God, that's possible. With God, it's possible to make a commitment to a gym and actually like going there. With God, that's possible in your life. With God, it's possible for you to be able to forgive easily and effortlessly. To just say, okay, you really screwed up that time, but I can forgive you. With God, that's possible. With God, it's possible for us to define who we are, who we love, how we dress, where we live. With God, that's possible. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is to totally define who we are in the world. Because, you know, often so many people, they think they have a vote on who we are, on the definition of who we are. In fact, sometimes they think they have the majority vote of who we are. So today we're going to look to our Jewish ancestors for some wisdom, because it takes courage to stand up to somebody who's voting a different way than your heart is saying for you to go. It takes courage for you to stand up and to say, I am whole, perfect, and complete, just as I am. I am here on purpose. I look the way I look. I talk the way I talk. I dress the way I dress. I worship the way I worship. I love the way I love. At God's invitation. I'm here on purpose, for a purpose. That takes courage sometimes. So today we're going to be looking at our Jewish ancestors, and particularly the story of Hanukkah. Now those of you who have been coming in December, you know that every December we sort of dedicate ourselves to looking at the spiritual nourishment in different spiritual paths. Last week we borrowed spiritual nourishment from Buddhism as we celebrated the light that you are with the Day of Enlightenment of the Buddha, called Bodhi Day. Today we'll do Hanukkah. Next week we're going to go pagan. We're going to go to the Wiccan tradition. I know everybody, oh my God. We're going to drill down into what pagan really means, and you're going to be surprised, some of you. Then we're going to go on to Christmas, of course, and look at the light that we are through the Christ consciousness. And then we're going to wind up with our celebration of Kwanzaa, which is not a spiritual holiday. It's an African-American cultural holiday, but make no mistake, it has tremendous spiritual wisdom in it for us. So those are what's coming up. I want to make sure that we understand that Hanukkah is not a replacement holiday that Jewish moms and dads thought up because their Christian neighbors were getting presents. Okay, that wasn't about that. This is a very powerful standalone holiday all by itself. So I'm going to ask Jeanette Egan to come up and to bless us with blessing the altar. And even though Hanukkah doesn't actually start till Tuesday, we're going to light all of the candles. Okay, thank you.
First, I'll give you the prayer, and then I'll light the candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe. Asher kitchanu b'mitzvotah v'tzivanu, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us, lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah, to light the lights of Hanukkah. We light them from right to left, as the Hebrew language is, my right.
Thank you, Jeanette. We have some powerfully creative and talented people. I'm going to tell you that the person we had scheduled wasn't able to make it this morning, and I just asked Jeanette about 2 seconds ago if she would do that, and how fabulous is that? So we show respect to Judaism this day by doing what they do in the Hanukkah season, and that is they tell the story of Hanukkah every single year to their families. And I'm going to do that too. It's a Jewish proverb that said, God so loved stories that he invented people. And so we're going to do that. So here's my invitation to you. Those of you who have been here, coming here for several years, don't fall asleep, because don't get into that mindset that, oh, I've heard this story. Hear it again. Begin to understand that today, in this moment, this telling of the story has a blessing for you in it. Now, I know many of you have a favorite movie that you've bought and you watch it over and over again, or you have a favorite book that you watch over and over again. So think of it in that way. There's something here for you today in the telling of this story. It's a demonstration of when things go from good to great, something has to happen. Something has to happen for things to go from good to great. We are not sent here to be stuck people. We are sent here to continual, as Ernest Holmes, our founder, says, continual spiraling upward. Now, sometimes people think that means getting more things. Spiraling upward means simply fulfilling more of who you are, dropping the dance and seeing who you are on the planet and fulfilling that. Well, the story starts out, the Jews were doing okay. They were actually okay. And many victory stories start out when things are okay. Some of us had jobs and they were okay, and we went to them every day. And then after 5, 10, 15 years, they began not getting so okay anymore. And they were okay, so we were doing it by rote. We kept going and going because we were getting a paycheck. People depended on the paycheck. And we knew that we didn't belong there. Something had to happen for us to get out of that job. Sometimes we just got a wake-up call and we got another job. Other times we got fired from that job and we had to get another job. But something will happen to move you from good to great. Well, when the Jews were okay, they were slaves, but they were living in an era that they were governed by a man named Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great didn't hassle these people. He let them worship the God of their understanding. He allowed them to dress how they wanted to dress. He allowed them even to build a beautiful temple on the highest peak in the area. But nevertheless, even though he didn't hassle them, they were dependent on him. They were dependent on his benevolence. How many of us in this room right now are dependent on somebody else's mood, somebody else's behavior, somebody else's patterns in life in order for us to be okay? See, we don't feel free. Things aren't terrible with our kids. Things aren't terrible with our spouse. Things aren't terrible with our boss. But something is wanting to be said to make it even better. But we don't say it. Because we don't say it because we're afraid we could make things worse in our life if we spoke up. When we are in that place, we are not free. And if you spend long enough in a state of no freedom, something will happen to call you forward. And most of us have experienced that in a life. We've been in relationships that we knew weren't working. We tried to make them work. We did the best we could. We went to therapy. We did other things. But they were not going to work. And finally, something happened, and we ended up getting a divorce. For the Jews, in their situation, they were called forward by something that happened. And what happened was Alexander the Great died, and an anti-Semite came in called Antiochus. And Antiochus was fearful of the Jews. He was afraid of how they dressed, how they spoke, how they worshiped. Now here's the thing. We want to really break this story down and apply it to ourselves. Because everybody in this room has had that experience where we were afraid of somebody and we tried to control them. Even if the control was to keep them away from us because we were afraid of them. Maybe they were bikers. Maybe they were TV evangelists. Maybe they were rich people. Maybe they were people who wore a turban. They were people that we wanted to control or limit their expression. If not by going at them physically, then by verbally trying to limit their expression. We've railed against them in our life. And when we do that, we miss a blessing. We miss a potential blessing when we try and keep people over there. I'm going to tell you that the people in recovery know this well, because we often sit next to people for whom we share no values and who are way different than us. When I first sobered up, I'm going to tell you that there were two people who I wouldn't have given the time of day on the street. Their names were Saddleback Charlie and Chrysler Sal. I'll never forget them as long as I live. I had nothing. She had hair out to here. It was, I don't know, shellacked or something. I could never quite figure it out. But what I do know is they saved my life. They saved my life. See, it's very dangerous for us to try and limit somebody else's behavior in their life. Well, Antiochus, he dealt with his fear by taking limiting to a new extreme. What he did was to forbid. He forbid the Sabbath. He forbid them to worship a god of their understanding. He took his soldiers into the temple and wrecked the temple. He slaughtered pig blood all over the temple. He broke the windows. He dismantled the ark. He took out the candle that was always on 24/7, representing God is always on the job. He took that out as well in his life because he wanted to control how they were and how they did. But we know this. We know that you cannot control other people. If they have a sense of who they are, it's absolutely impossible to control them. Those of you who are parents of adult children or nearly adult children, you know this. You cannot control them. If they have a sense of who they are and it's much different than what you thought they would be or even what you hoped they would be, you are not going to be able to control them in their life. We know that you can't forbid somebody to do something when we look at Ferguson and New York. Those protesters were going to protest because they had a sense of who they are. And all the forbidding in the world wasn't going to stop him. All of the bringing in the militia was not going to stop them because they had a sense of who they are. Gay people who want to get married will find one of the 17 states and we will get married if that's what we want to do. Because we have a sense of who it is that we are. People who have been in accidents and who want to be Olympians, they had a sense of who they were. They found the Paralympians, and they are Olympians this day. See, you can't forbid anybody, whether it's subtly or by law or by physical force, to not be who it is they are in their lives. Well, it didn't work, but he didn't stop trying. So what he began to do was to send his armies into all of the little villages, and he lined up the Jews, and he would make them bow down to a Greek statue. And of course, that didn't work either. See, here's the thing that we want to do. When we begin to sort of judge other people for trying to control, we want to be able to have compassion for them. Because trying to control doesn't work, but it's because they are afraid. See, and all of us have tried to hide who they were. See, what he tried to do is to make all of the Jews be like he was. And we've done that. All of us have tried to pass as something that we weren't. See, when he lined up all of the Jews and tried to make them bow down, we think, well, how could they have done that? But you and I have done that. All of us have done that. Some of us have passed because we didn't graduate from college and we wanted other people to think that we graduated from college. Other people have passed because we thought we tried to make other people believe we had our money trip together, when actually our money trip is not anywhere near together. Other people have passed because we tried to say we've never popped our kids in the past, when you know many of us have had that moment where we did pop our kids in the past. Some of us have tried to pass by saying, we hate hip hop. When it's on our radio, we roll our windows up and we're down the road because we really love hip hop. See, whatever it is, we don't want to judge other people for giving in, because all they're trying to do is to be accepted by the dominant culture. Well, what happened is many of the Jews did say, okay, I renounce my Judaism. They bowed down and they bowed to the statue. But there was one man. There was one man who said no. There was one man who thought beyond common wisdom. And I want us to hear this phrase because it's very important that we grab onto this. There are times in our lives when we need to think beyond common wisdom. And that's what he did. And whenever you and I think beyond common wisdom and we do something that doesn't look like it makes sense, then people around us are thinking, are you nuts? And we get encouragement to renounce who it is we are in our life, no matter what it is. But this one man didn't. And he said something that's so important for us. And it's so important for today's spiritual truth. What he said is no. And furthermore, whoever is for God, go with me now. And when I say that, I don't mean a God in the sky. I mean, forever who is for truth, go with me now. Whoever is for love, go with me now. Whoever is for courage, go with me now. And 5 people did. They happened to be his sons. His 5 sons went with him. And they they formed a little band of rebels. And they called themselves the Maccabees. And what they did was, although they started small, and Maccabee means hammer. Any carpenter in the room, Peter will tell you in the room, if you're going to hit a big nail with a hammer, you probably are going to hit it more than one time. You're going to have to bap, bap, bap it. And that's what they did. The Maccabees, this little band of rebels. And see how important it is to be a band of rebels. In some ways, CSA is a band of rebels. Because we go beyond common wisdom. I encourage everybody to be in some kind of a band of rebels. This church, some of the ministries. We have a congregant care ministry now. They're a band of rebels. And what they are doing is they're saying, yes, I'm busy. Yes, it's hard to carve time out sometimes. But I am going to make sure that I am available to people in this church who are ill. people in this church who need to go to chemotherapy. I will drive them. That's a band of rebels going beyond common thinking in this life. So the Maccabees, they were hammer, 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 hammer. And that's important too, because what we want to remember is sometimes we get caught up in thinking that we can change our thinking and then change our life in the twinkling of an eye. And in fact, it is possible to do that. It is not probable to do that. Most of us need to hammer at those false beliefs over and over and over again. If I could give you one affirmation that you could say one time, I would. But you need to say these affirmations over and over and over again so they get deep into us. You've got to hammer at those false beliefs very often. Well, what they did was they hammered and hammered and hammered, and they began to have some success. And whenever we have success in our lives, it's amazing how people want to join us, isn't it? Yeah, we're very attractive at that point. And so that's what happened to the Maccabees. More people and more people and more people began to join in. And that really frosted Antiochus. And what he said finally was, look, I'm done with all this little hammer and stuff. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get all of my soldiers and we're going to have one battle and I'm going to just do these guys in. And so he brought all of the soldiers to this one place. And of course the Maccabees knew the place and they knew the day that the battle was supposed to take place. So in the morning, the Maccabees got up very early. And a little later, Antiochus' soldiers got up. And they began to put on their armor. And it takes a minute to put on armor. And when you put on armor, you're not as free and you can't move about as easily. And that was good news for the Maccabees, because they just rushed out before they were fully ready to go, and they beat them back and they won the war. Now look, the armor is important to us in the story because that's what you and I do. We put on our armor. When we think we have to go someplace that's scary, maybe have to go to talk to your boss, or maybe you have to go talk to an authority figure, what we do is we put on our armor. We sharpen our blamer. We get our excuses all lined up. And then we go in. And by that time, we're not lithe. We can't move quickly. And the same thing happens to us as happened to Antiochus' soldiers. Well, the best part of the story is that when they won the war, they went back to the beautiful temple they had built. And they did something that's very important for us to remember. In fact, it's so important, it's a reason for me to say this story every year. And that is this. They opened that door and they looked in that temple. And what they did next was they wept. They wept. It's important for us to remember this. When we have a tragedy in our life, it is important for us to take a moment and weep, to feel the feelings. See, in New Thought, sometimes we forget that because so God is always good. And that's true, God is always good. But that doesn't mean that we don't feel sad. And it's important. If you really want a healing in your life, take the time to weep your trespasses and those who've trespassed against you, the tragedies in your life. Feel your feelings. And then when that is complete, and I don't mean make a career out of it either. I always like what Minister Tom Costa said. He said, I go through the shadow of the valley of death, but I don't buy a condominium there. I just keep moving through it. And when they did, they began to clean. They began to clean, and they cleaned it all up. And they put beautiful windows back. They made the ark beautiful again. They cleaned all the sheep's blood. And then they looked at the candle that signified God was on the job. And they realized they didn't have enough oil to make it last. And the most important thing I'm going to say is what they did next. And that is They started. They started. They lit the candle. It's important for us because, see, here's what we think sometimes. We think that if we don't have all the ducks lined up, if we don't have the end done, not in mind, we need the end in mind, but we don't have it completed, we haven't figured out how to do it, we don't start. You don't need to know how the end is going to do. You have to see the end, but you don't need to know how it's going to happen in order to take the first step. Because when we take the first step, we are beckoned to take a second step and a third step and a fourth step and a fifth step. But if you are stuck, if you don't start because it looks hopeless, that second step just can't happen. Let's take this message into prayer. There's only one power, and it's the power of love. It runs through us all of the time. It's the power of yes. The one word the universe knows, which is yes. So I'm careful to what I put out in the universe. I put out love. I put out harmony. I put out peace. I put out people understanding each other. And when I do that, the universe simply says yes. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is. Today, before I take your gift, we're going to give a gift. Many of you know that we practice what we preach here, and we preach tithing. And as a result of that, we tithe. We tithe to a community group that we think is shining the light of God's love somewhere in the universe. And so today, we have a very wonderful group called Pets for Vets. And so I'd like to ask Dana Barrow to come up and receive the congregation's gift. Great, and we'd just like to ask you to say a little bit about Pets for Vets.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I hope I get through this without coughing. Kind of have a little of the same thing going on. So if I look funny, that's what it is. Thank you very much for having me. Pets for Vets, and letting me take the time to explain what Pets for Vets is. We are just blessed. And we took that first step about a year and a half ago when I was trying to figure out what it was that I was supposed to be doing. And my husband and I, who was in the Navy, rented a video documentary, and it featured part of the Pets for Vets program. And at the time, we have probably about 20 family members that have served or are currently serving in the military. We also had a rescue dog along with another dog. And so we had been donating a lot of our time and energy to pets organizations and veteran organizations. So when we saw this combination of, oh my goodness, you can rescue a dog and train it to be a companion pet for some of these veterans that are returning home, we thought that that was an absolute perfect match for us. So we thought, let's be a foster family. That's a good idea. So we called and said, we'd like to be a foster family. And they said, well, thank you, but we don't have a chapter in your area. Would you like to start one? And we said, sure, why not? And we didn't have any idea as to what we were doing or how to do it. I have 3 dogs that are proof positive that I can't train a dog. So we started our journey. And when we got started, we realized that there was 2 keys to the success of our organization. One was the talent, the dedication, the compassion, and the time that trainers give to our veterans. Each match takes about 4 to 5 months. They interview the veteran, they find out what their lifestyle is, how they want their new companion to fit in that lifestyle, improve their lifestyle. They meet with the family to see what the home life is like, and then they go and choose the pet. And after they choose the pet, they take about 6 to 8 weeks to train a pet. All of this, they're just amazing. They're just amazing men and women that do what they do. The second key to the success of our organization is donations that come from people and organizations like yourself. We can't do it without the money. And while everybody is volunteers, the it still costs money. We have to get the dogs, we have to pay the vets, we have to pay we take care of everything. The veteran pays for absolutely nothing. We pay the adoption fee, the microchipping. We also give them a home package that has all of their goodies in it, their crates, their beds, their bowls, their food, and everything else that they need.
Great.
So they do not need to do anything. To say that this project and process changes lives is amazing. We got a call from a mother 4 months after we donated, or actually dropped off her dog to her son. And he, when we first met him, he didn't speak very much. He pretty much held his head down, looked at his feet, yes ma'am, no ma'am, didn't really engage with us at all. And he wanted a dog that would sit at his feet while he played music and wrote music, and that would lay by his bed so that he could wake up in the middle of the night and know that somebody else was there when he had his night terrors. 4 months later, his mother called us and said, "You have no idea the change that we see in our son. He stands tall, he looks you in the eye, he's successful at his job, he takes his dog everywhere, he's writing music, and he not only smiles, but he laughs and jokes now with people around him." And you think it's just a dog. A year ago, on the 28th was our first match. It went to a veteran in Woodland, and he called us before he was even out. He was in Afghanistan, and he realized the value of dogs while he was in Afghanistan, because they would sort of adopt the dogs over there while they were in theater. And so he said he really wanted a dog. We said, okay. He came to us and said, "Please get me a dog." We said, "We'll get you a dog." And he was our first one, so we were crossing our fingers. And we found him a wonderful dog, and he kept thanking us for doing that for him. And we kept saying, it was hard to take that thank you from him, because here we are trying to thank him. And I finally just said to him, I said, "Thank you for adopting her. If you weren't willing to adopt a rescue dog, she wouldn't have been saved." And he said, "I'm the one that was saved."
Oh.
So, thank you for choosing. Thank you for choosing us to be a beneficiary today. We really appreciate it. This adds to the success of our chapter, and thank you for being a lifeline for veterans.
Oh,
appreciate it.
Good. All right, thank you. So that's 742 of your dollars that we're giving to them. Okay, one more quick thing. Could you all close your eyes just for 15 seconds, if that's comfortable, and think about, why do you come to CSA? Why do you come to CSA? Okay, all right. Well, the board has, you have an awesome board, by the way. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we had our board retreat yesterday, and one of the things that we're doing is starting a campaign on our Facebook and Twitter account that says #YCSA. And what we want you to do is, will you stand up, Kyla? Kyla is going to be in Brooks Hall, and she's going to have some blank ones of these signs. Wait, okay, fine, but we want you to show the blank. All right, thank you. All right, and so we have one here that says, "I feel God when I hear the music." And another one is, "To be reminded I am whole, perfect, and complete." So you have something in your heart now that you thought of. We would like many, many of you today to meet with Kyla in Brooks Hall. And Kyla will give you a pen, and in your handwriting, we want you to write that. And then Kyla will take your picture and we'll post you on Facebook. So we're going to start a #YCSA campaign. Thank you, Kyla. And